AM 1220 KDOW and Money 2.0 present The Real Estate Report with Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines. Bay Area real estate and mortgage experts with over 25 years in the business. Now, with an in-depth look at this week's local and national real estate news and what it means for you. Your hosts, Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines.
Welcome into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
Thanks for joining us today. Live show. You can call it 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. We're here to talk about real estate, the market, as well as mortgage rates, which we saw actually go up today in Freddie Mac's survey to 5.5% on the 30-year fixed. But we're going to see that actually come down, I believe, in the next survey we'll see next Wednesday. They heavily weight Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we saw some activity earlier this week that brought it up. But the ECB, they unveiled a new bond buying program. It's going to demand a lot more activity towards European bonds. That's going to trickle over here into the United States. And it kind of did over the last couple of days, seeing a little bit of relieved pressure off of rates. And I see a lot of people taking action on this. We've actually seen rates below 5% in some scenarios with good credit scores, good equity, even in the high balance range. So this speaks really well for those buyers who are out there, people who thought rates were going to go all the way to 6%. Maybe this is that time they can grab it. If you have any questions about that, you can always reach out to us, Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. But meanwhile, Gordon, what do you make of these ups and downs that we're going to see? These are opportunities, I believe, that people who are not only looking to buy, but feel like on a refinance they missed out on an opportunity.
Yeah, I got a call from a client today. He was asking me the same question. He says, Gordon, I don't understand. The Feds have been raising rates, and somehow or the other, rates initially went up, not come back down because the Feds have not lowered rates. And he was totally confused of why there's so many peaks and valleys as far as real estate rates are concerned. I didn't have a good explanation for it, but I said, listen, right now the administration is under enormous pressure, like everybody else, to kind of get a hold of inflation. Probably one of the ways of it's just kind of controlling money supply, of course, and also controlling what people spend. As rates go up, we still want to keep consumer confidence up because we still want people to actually spend money. We want people to go out and work and all these kind of things to kind of keep the economy going so we can avoid the big R word, recession. So I couldn't explain it to him any better because consequently, this is what we hire these people to do. These people are professionals, they're economists, they have years and years of experience of kind of controlling the market, kind of keeping the market under grips as we work through this really, really tight period of time, simply because, with all the things that have happened in the world, now we will look at there's now new pressure that's come into play this week, which is, of course, is global warming. Fires all over the world. Water is a big issue, especially here in California. All across the country. New York, I think, experienced, this is the seventh straight day of 90 plus temperatures, which is unheard of. So a lot of different things to think about, a lot of pressures on the administration. But when you're in that seat, whatever happens on your watch, you have to take credit for or be discredited with. And that's what Joe Biden is facing.
Some of the other factors in the rates were the index from the Philly Fed. They're pointing towards the biggest economic weakness since the initial COVID lockdowns that we saw a couple of years ago. So the combination of the weakness plus at least the forecast of the weakness plus the ECB announcement with their bond purchasing program, that's why we're seeing these rates where they are. So the weaker economy, Gordon, you kind of called it recession. I think that's what a lot of people are fearing, that's kind of a friend for interest rates. So if we see a weaker economy, we're going to see lower interest rates, regardless of how the inflation plays into it, because that's how economics work.
Yeah, that's how it pencils out. It's a balancing act. It's a balancing sheet, I should say. So a lot of times there's one indicator goes one direction and we anticipate the indicator go the other direction. Sometimes it kind of works opposite simply because we have to make change in the marketplace to kind of bring about change to what we're trying to accomplish. So it's not an exact science, I think, but it is the best that we can do under the circumstance. And I think that's what the experts are supposed to do for us in these tight economies that we're experiencing right now in 2022.
So again, Freddie Mac has the 30-year fixed at 5.54%, the 15-year at 4.75%, and the 5-year ARM at 4.31%. ARM compared to the 30-year fixed, 1.23% lower, almost 1 1/8 lower. That's quite a bit of money over a period of time. If you were to look at like a 5-year ARM and say, I'm going to ride out this, these volatility in the market. If the rates drop, great. I get to refinance. If they stay high for a while, I beat it out for 5 years, and then you have choices down the road. So I think a lot of people are still aiming towards, or at least considering an ARM. And I know a lot of people just won't ever do an ARM. No matter how long they think they're going to stay in their house or they're going to sell their house in 5 years, they'll never do an ARM and they'll pay more because they like that security. But I think more and more people, as they see these rates stay elevated for a longer period of time, a prolonged period of time, a lot of people might say, it will start changing their mind.
Talking to a client today, just wanted a contract on a $939,000 purchase. When I gave him the difference between the ARM payment and the 30-year fix, which he was a legend too, by the way. He's done many, many loans over the years. He's always opted for a 30-year fix. But once he looked at the payments and he said, listen, for 5 years, I'm going to save something like $38,000 just in principal payments alone. So it looks like he's going to, break with what he normally does, break with tradition, I should say, and then go for an ARM, which I was proud to say it makes sense. As a market, whatever the market gives, we should take if we understand economics. Right now, the market, as you just mentioned, if an ARM, a fixed rate ARM is a better term, is 1.8% lower, i.e., less dollars out of pocket, i.e., more savings over time. It's a safe bet to go with the ARM.
Yeah, so these are just options. For me, it's always been about options, talking to a borrower in any way, and it still baffles me that there's a large portion of agents that a large portion of the public are interacting with that don't offer options. It's not just options like 30-year fixed ARM, and so on. They don't talk about rate options as well. You just talked about how you can get a lower cost by choosing a different rate. You said it in a roundabout way, but that's really what you meant, is that you can get a lower cost loan by choosing a higher rate. Now, if you think that you're going to refinance or sell your house in less than 5 years, the same principle applies towards an ARM. You want the lower rate to have lower payments during the period you own the property. Why would you take a lower rate? Why would you pay points, for example, instead take a higher rate where you might actually get a credit, knowing that you might refinance it or sell the house in a certain period of time? But those are the options that most loan officers don't give people.
Well, a lot of loan officers don't know those options. They don't know how to explain the difference in costs over time. A lot of times, especially when they're green in the industry, they just kind of look at what's on the sheet and kind of sell what's on the sheet. Of course, the human being, we are creatures of habit. We're gun ho on the 30-year fix because that's what our fathers had and our grandfather had. So a lot of times we don't like some of the newer products that come out in the market because they always see it as a gimmick. But sometimes it's not a gimmick, it's actually a plan. So that's why in our business, we try to educate people that are listening to this show that we're not a gimmick show, we're a plan show. Plan bring about results, and the experience that we've had over time can pay dividends if you incorporate what we're talking about.
I recommend if you are considering an ARM, somebody's offering it to you, or even considering it, give us a call. Shoot us an email, Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. We can run it over the scenario. It's not just about what your payments are and in 5 years, what am I going to do? It's about what are the savings? What are your short-term and long-term goals? What is your income going to look like? Are you going to turn it into a rental? It's all of these things all put together that make up your decision on whether you're going to take that ARM or not. We're welcome to all these kinds of scenarios. Again, it's Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. So interest rates continue to be in the front kind of stage of buyers' concerns, people refinancing. A lot of the posts that we're seeing from we're connected to all of these mortgage lenders and realtors, and a lot of it's these guys refinances are dead. We're going after purchases. So everybody's going after purchases, but refinances aren't dead. There's still a lot of people out there that need refinances for one reason or the other. We've done a whole video on YouTube about the other reasons why people would refinance, even as with higher rates. We have one client right now who's buying another property. They see an opportunity. They need money. They're not going to use their savings. They're going to go right to a house. It's a rental property, and somebody else, the renters, i.e., are paying for that. Him borrowing it, and the the numbers still pencil out for that, and he's able to put a down payment on another house. There's multiple amount of reasons, Gordon.
Well, I just put out a video, and as compared to a HELOC versus refinancing your fixed rate mortgage, a lot of people have low fixed rates. We talked on this before, and don't want to touch those fixed rates, so they're looking for different ways of getting monies. A lot of people are considering an equity line or HELOC, and of course, we caution people on those things. You have to look at the whole picture, read the fine print, compare the two. Even though you're keeping your fixed rate, but a lot of times if you take a blended payment, you're actually going to be paying more, even though the rate has gone up if you choose to refinance. So always look at the numbers, always get a second opinion, get a professional opinion. Like we talk to a lot of people and they're getting information from their cousin or, cousin Vinny, the character we always talk about here on the show, their friends. Everybody's always have an opinion. As Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get hit. But we try to hit you with the actual correct information so you can make that good decision, so you can stay out of the knockout.
Can I hear your best? Everybody has an opinion, Mike Tyson.
Yeah, but I have an opinion.
Everyone does, and it is really difficult. And you might jest about that. When you go to the internet, there's so many opinions. Usually, it's an ad, unfortunately, and ads always look really good. People spend a lot of money to polish those ads to make them appeal to you. You talked about the newbies in the business that are coming in and getting business. They may not know all the options. They may not know what to tell you. They're just saying and doing the right thing because there's somebody behind them that taught them how to advertise, how to market, how to social, spread their word on social networks and get business. That doesn't mean they're great at their business. So be very careful in what you see out there. It does not hurt to shop for opinion, not just shop for rate and cost. It's shop for opinion and find somebody who's going to actually do you a service, not just now, but in the future. How many clients do you work with that you've done more than one loan? Like over 50% of them.
Many. And I get lots of calls. People are asking advice. Sometimes even though they might go elsewhere, but I feel proud that they're calling me for advice because that authenticates that I know what I'm talking about, which is because we've been doing it for a long time. We've seen different markets. We've seen different things happen. We've seen these things before. We're not newbies, so a lot of times our opinions are not based on what we think is right. Our opinions are based on experience. They've been tried, tested, and proven to be accurate.
With that said, you're always welcome to join in the conversation. 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220. You can call the show. Give us any of the questions you have. You can shoot us an email, Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. We put all of those videos on YouTube and on Facebook. It's all Bay Area Loan Source at Bay Area Loan Source. It's also our website, BayAreaLoanSource.com. We're going to talk a little bit more about fast closings and how that and why that matters on a purchase today. Even though we see sellers still kind of looking for buyers now, demand is kind of weakened. We'll come back after this break on AM 1220 KDOW.
Tony and Gordon are taking your calls at 800-516-1220. It's the Real Estate Report on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm the maestro, Gordon Hines.
June home sales, they fall 5.4% for May. And we have a couple other pieces of news. The CEO of the National Association of Home Builders said, we're heading into a housing recession. Please, someone help us. I don't know if he quite said that. He said, somebody do something or we're going to go into a recession, he said. This is, it's interesting when you have builders that are coming out and saying that our confidence has dropped. It dropped 12 points down to 55 in July. That's seventh consecutive month of declines from the National Association of Home Builders Wells Fargo Housing Market Index that was released on Monday. Anything over 50 indicates a positive sentiment, but when you see it drop this fast, and that's what they're worried about, this huge drop in what they call home builder sentiment, it's kind of something that you want to pay attention to. Home builders are basically going to, they're going to sit back and see what happens, and when they do that, they stop making homes. They're not laying cement.
Well, I read an article this week where home builders are concerned. Their inventory is backing up. They say a lot of buyers are actually reneging on their contracts as they are afraid of what's going to happen in the economy, 6 months down the line. They don't want to use up all their cash because they want to maintain this cash just in case. So as that happens, builders now are beginning to cut prices because they can't keep those houses vacant sitting out there for too long because the interest is accruing. So that's where the biggest issue is. The second benefit, or I should say not the benefit to the builders, there's a lack of inventory still on the resale side. A lot of people still aren't selling because it's hard to sell because you have to find a place to go. So it's a double-edged sword as far as the housing market is concerned. And as rates continue to rise, of course, the more rates rises, the more eligible buyers we push out the market because of cost, because of what we call debt to income ratio in our business. So we have to be really concerned about, where we're going to be if the Feds continue to raise rates through the third quarter and through the fourth quarter of 2022. So that's what the builders are concerned about.
And they certainly are. And it's not just their inventory that's sitting there. They're just not making more either. So it's affecting both sides of their business right now. But I've always known about the builders is they can just shut it off. They don't hire. They're not bringing the contractors in. The supplies aren't coming in. So I think I saw a report that lumber translated into the increase in lumber cost translated into a $14,000 on average increase, just the increase in cost, not the actual lumber, but the increase, $14,000 in new home prices, as well as $53 a month in rentals. So these are all kind of adding up, Gordon. You talk about affordability. Affordability is something that we pay attention to a lot. There was a survey done. It talked about how demand is the number one, guide of home prices going up or down. And demand is associated with the ability for people to buy a house and afford a house. And affordability is the thing that we pay attention to with that debt to income ratio. That's gone up a lot. There's some payments down in, I think San Jose led the nation. They saw like a 41 or 42% increase in their principal and interest payment in less than a 6-month period. That's if you were to buy 6 months ago and then buy today. That's quite incredible, and that eats into the income. It's not quite keeping up with, or your wages aren't keeping up with that inflation of housing costs. So all of these are playing a factor in what's going on, but at some point we were going to see this correction, so to speak. We were going to see the bigger they are, the harder they kind of fall. We all knew this was kind of going to come. I don't think anybody should be surprised at all. In fact, I think there's a lot of people who really wanted this to happen. There was the writing on the wall. More inventory is going to hit the market. We're going to sit on the sidelines and wait and see what happens. Okay, yeah, rates went up, but now we're going to see more inventory hit the market. We're going to see some markets around the United States. I put a survey out today. Not a lot of people responded to it, but I'll do another one earlier in the week so we get more response on what do you think is going to happen with home prices if we have prolonged higher interest rates. And I voted 0 to 5% range in home prices. I don't think we're going to go negative, especially here in the Bay Area. There are places right now that are saying it, but in the long run, I think we really did expect it. We just didn't know how it was going to play out. But these interest rates they're not bad. We're still below our historical average. People bought homes when rates were at 6.25%, which is our historical average.
Well, that's because we've been spoiled over the last 10 years of low rates.
You stole that word, by the way, from someone earlier today.
Yeah. People that are buying now and newbies are never seen these kind of rates. For the last 10 years, rates been very, very low. And years averaging less than 3% on the fixed rate, which was a heck of a deal. So, as the tantalizing qualifying question is, what do you prefer to do? Do you prefer to buy a house at a higher cost with a lower rate, or buy a house at a lower cost with a higher rate? These are all these are all questions that people ask us every day. My feeling is I'd rather buy a house at a lower cost with a higher rate because everything is associated with the cost of the home based upon the price that I pay. So the higher price you pay, the more I'm going to pay for escrow fees, title fees, appraisal, everything else. Everything is going to be high. Even though I have a low interest rate, it's gonna cost more. But if I buy a house at a lower rate with a higher interest rate, later on at some point in time, rates will come down. I will be able to go back and recapture some of that interest cost with a lower payment simply because I'm able to reduce my rate, and therefore I think that's a better deal. And I think that's where we are right now. We are approaching that environment where we have lower cost homes with higher rates, and people should not get scared. It's an opportunity to get in the marketplace because we always say whatever goes up does come down. It's only a matter of time.
Well, speaking of what's coming up, We have 30% year-over-year increase in inventory. That's of July 15th. So compared to last year, 30% up. Compared to the beginning of, the bottom, which I believe was March of this year, it's almost 100% higher than where it was as far as inventory. So we're seeing a lot more inventory. Yes, March 2022, that's up 110% since then. So we've seen a doubling in inventory, which is a doubling in the amount of options that you are getting. So you're talking about people who are saying, I'd rather buy a house that has, a lower price, or the right price, regardless of the rate, because rates will come back down eventually. That's what they do. They go up and down. And then, but it's about the price that I paid for it. But it's not just that. It's about having the options. Because if you are going to spend a lot of money, and it's my mantra, more people would rather spend more money on something they like than less money on something they don't like. So having more options that are coming on the market really makes sense for a lot of buyers, because when you're limited to, we have an email here from somebody who said, I can't afford a house around here, a single family. I have to look at multi-units, 2-unit, 3-unit, 4 units. Yes, okay, I'm going to be living next to somebody. It's not the ideal situation, but that's what I need to do in order to buy a house here. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's more about the loan product that she can use. But having those options really makes a big difference, Gordon. Especially if you're an investor. We're going to start seeing a lot more investment properties come out.
Well, that's one of the reasons why the market has been crunched, based on the report I read this week. They said 50% of the market was escalated by investors. And as the investors begin to get weary and they back out the market would take a bigger toxic hit.
I don't think investors are going anywhere with rents where they are. I think it's a very attractive investment for a lot of people. And even if there is a dip, they're still looking at cash flow. Cash flow is king when it comes to investing. I don't think they're backing out anytime soon. In fact, last month we saw them still hit some records as far as purchasing. We'll come back after this break. I'm Tony Mendez. That's Gordon Hines. You can always email us, Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. We'll be right back.
Got a question? Run it past these guys. 800-516-1220. It's the Real Estate Report with Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm the maestro, Gordon Hines.
You can always find us at Facebook and YouTube. It's all Bay Area Loan Source. Bay Area Loan Source. And you can call the show 800-516-1220 to kind of chime in. We do like people chiming in. We have a couple callers here that throughout the week, that is, we got, not during the show. One of these was an investor call. He bought a house, and this is right up your alley, Gordon. He bought a house last year to hold and rent, but the market shot up, prices, I'm assuming, and selling looked better than renting. So we kicked out the tenant, did about $150,000 of work, which turned out during, with the lumber and labor and other costs, ran up to about $250,000, and he ran out of money 2/3 of the way. So he has a good rate on the first, does not want to refinance the first, but the house isn't quite finished. So it's not going to pass an appraisal. You can't do a cash out loan, nor can he refinance, and he doesn't want to go through the headache of a renovation loan. What are his options to get money to finish without, tapping, something maybe his other house or something, who knows?
Well, probably his best option, of course, is to reach out to family and friends. If that's not an option, then he'd probably come to us and we can probably look at a private financing for him, which that kind of bridges a gap. A lot of the standard government or institution type loans always looking for appraised value, and they want appraised value to be in what we call as is functioning condition. Sounds like the house is not functioning. He ran out of money. He needed money to finish the project, and we do these type of loans all the time. We'll give him a private second, finish the project, and after he's finished the project, he can either sell the property or refinance into his long-term finance so he can substantially.
Right. So he can get the market rates after he gets it done. So a lot of people run into that scenario where their house isn't quite complete, but they need more money. A lot of investors, especially while we saw prices go up, not home prices, we're talking about supply prices. And you saw that firsthand where we were watching plywood go up astronomically.
And that typically happens with a novice investor. He probably hasn't done a lot of these projects. Anytime you see people run out of money, because anytime you budget for a project, there's always going to be cost overruns. So you should anticipate more money to actually budget for, because that's especially in an environment where it was hard to get materials and the cost of materials have skyrocketed.
Is it safe to say that equity will always win this scenario? As long as you have the equity, there's going to be someone who lend you the money to help you get out of it. So don't panic. There are things that you can do. It might cost you some money, though. That's the thing. But that's part of doing a business. And again, maybe being a novice at this, he didn't really anticipate some of these. His backup, his plan B. You need to have more than plan B, A, B, C, D, E. Another caller called. This was the one from Kathy in the East Bay. She can't afford a single-family house. It would be either too small or too far away. So she starts looking at 2 to 4 units, but she only has 10% down. What are her options with 10% down on an owner-occupied multi-unit? There's not many. You got the FHA, but if you have a house that may not pass, as we talked about investors getting an appraisal, it may not pass. What are her options? Staying conventional. There are products, believe it or not, in what they call the non-qualified mortgage arena that will do 10% down on investment properties, 2 to 4 unit, pay a slightly higher rate, but you're getting into the property, and then you can shore up your financing later after you fix some things. If you can bypass that appraisal part, not bypass it, but get away with it, and then fix some things up to avoid the private money. But private money is also there. So kind of two related stories about how you can get into properties using alternative products. And they're out there. Products drive the market. Gordon, this is something you talk about all the time. You're welcome to reach out to us, Tony or Gordon, at BayAreaLoanSource.com. We have videos on all of this stuff at YouTube and on Facebook. It's all Bay Area Loan Source. We'll come back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW.
Phone lines are open on The Real Estate Report. 800-516-1220. That's 800-516-1220.
Welcome back into The Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm the maestro, Gordon Hines.
So we talked about interest rates, 5.54%, according to Freddie Mac Weekly survey on the 30-year fixed, the 5-year ARM at 4.31%. We talked a little bit about using an adjustable rate mortgage, how that can get you, 5, 7, or 10 years into a slightly lower interest rate than the 30-year fixed. And that could buy you some time, watch and see what happens in the market. We talked a little bit about opportunities to buy, more inventory hitting the market, which is really good news. Whether you are a buyer or a seller, if you're a seller, you're going to want inventory somewhere where you're moving to. This has changed the overall market. A lot of the places, Gordon, you've talked about how just even locally, places like Mountain House and other outlying suburbs that have been, really, really jacked up with home prices. A lot of people were looking for the deals, and prices kept on going up and up and up and up. Some of the other overvalued places in the United States that could see, according to some surveys, this was done by Moody's Analytics, overvalued places in the United States, looking at a 15 to 20% hit if the recession continues the direction it's going. Boise, Idaho is one of them. They're looking at they grew 3.3% in 2020 to 2021. It was one of the it was among the sixth in the United States metro areas that they were number one, in fact. Sorry, going back to 2019. Colorado Springs, Colorado. Sorry, I fumbled that last one. Las Vegas, Nevada. No surprise there. A lot of people are still driving business there. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Phoenix, Arizona. Those are the top 5. You're starting to see a lot of investors went there, too. Gordon, they drove up prices. They were taking money out of places like the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and other large metropolitan areas and buying a lot of property. I bought a property in 2017, for example, and I went to a city where I kind of took the Bay Area mentality into that city, and I overbid and I pushed up prices in that, at least momentarily I did. I went over asking at the house just like that. It wasn't an issue.
Well, those are what we call the pent-up markets. And anytime you get a pent-up market, anytime there's a wave that comes to in a pent-up market, those markets actually start to show resistance and start to actually come down. Take Las Vegas, for example. We talk on the show every time I would go to Vegas and I drive and I take that I-15. By the time I hit that I-15, there's new housing tracts on every side of freeway from price range from $150,000 $100,000 on up. Any price range you want to buy, you can buy a new house over there. So, of course, when you have that much new housing and you have people that are migrating into those places for that new housing, when there's a wave, when there's people stop coming, of course, you start to see those markets start to come down as swiftly as they went up. And those that you talk about, Boise, Idaho, those are places that people don't traditionally go to. Boise, Idaho. I mean, the only thing I knew in Boise, Idaho was Cascade. But anyway, so I think those are the kind of things that you always see in those cities where when you come back to the big metropolitan city, the metropolis that we're involved here in, you typically don't see those kind of runs from those waves as quickly as we do in those type of pent-up cities or pent-up neighborhoods, as I call it.
Some of the places in the United States where people continue to migrate to and add to that effect. And we'll go to this list real quick. New York. Miami, Florida. Top state of origin, both New York. Tampa, Florida. Orlando and New York are the origins. Phoenix, Arizona. Los Angeles. Sacramento is from San Francisco and Seattle, believe it or not. Las Vegas, they're coming from all Los Angeles. And some of the places with a net outflow of users that are looking to move out of state or out of their metropolitan area. San Francisco is number one. Los Angeles, New York, and Washington, D.C. Sacramento is San Francisco's choice. San Diego and Phoenix, Arizona are Los Angeles. So there's still a large migration of people that are moving around the United States to some of these cities. So, and I don't know if I put a lot of credit to a study like that. When you have higher interest rates and you have an affordable prices in those places, that top five that we just listed, I don't think that we're going to see 15 to 20% drop. If anything, we're going to see more people move to these cities because that's where affordable housing is still. And when you factor in interest rates, they're going to make a decision to move to a place that's affordable. Does that make sense?
Well, it sounds, I always tell
theory.
people everything sounds good in theory. But the reality of people, when you get into the thought process of human beings, we like to stay seated to people that we know are close to family, friends, and where we grew up. So a lot of times it might be very, very easy to move over to, let's say, for example, to Las Vegas for a big 5-bedroom, 3-bath house for $200,000, where you're looking at a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in a similar place, and you're at your place of leisure for $200,000. Even though the big 5-bedroom seem attractive, it's too far from your connection. Or from your area of radius. Grew up, people just don't go. So a lot of times is you find that these things sounds good in theory, but when you learn when the actual philosophy of the human being, we always tend to stay close to our origin, stay close to our armpits, as we call it.
It's been something that a lot of people that have been looking at housing have been struggling with is, how far away do I want to move, if I want to move at all? But they're also struggling with rents. Rents aren't going down. We're seeing that almost double digits in some cities on growth regularly. So they're looking at, I'm never going to buy a house. I'm just going to stay here just because I can be close to, family, friends, or, something that I'm familiar with. And all of a sudden they go, well, we eventually want to buy a house. It's still the American dream. I know it's kind of cliche right now. It's more of a better investment in some cases than renting. But this is something that we're going to continue watching because interest rates have been playing a big part in those people's decisions. And it's not just the decision to get it. Some people would say, I'm okay with the interest rate if they can afford it. But all of a sudden, affordability is now just saying, I can't do it anymore. More people are saying, what can I afford instead of, hey, I can afford this. Well, I think when it comes to qualifying.
With the market retrieving back some, as pullback, I think as investors come out of the market, investors were a great reason why the properties went up so quickly. Of course, when you're buying against an investor, you're up against a cash offer. I think, as I mentioned earlier, if investors back out the market, I think, and the rates go up, you'll start to see people that were sitting on the sidelines do get an opportunity to buy a house and get out the competitive bid. And that's what scared off a lot of people. Ran a lot of buyers out of the market because they got tired of getting outbidded.
We just talked about how inventory is up 30% year over year, 100% from earlier in this year. That's just more houses for investors as it is for the regular owner-occupied buyers. So do you think they're going to back off just because there's more inventory when rents are where they are and you can still see and possibly see lower prices? They might even come back in even bigger numbers.
Yeah, I'm seeing it back off right now. I'm looking at some multiple houses on the market. It's been in the market for a long time because at some point in time, the prices outpaced rents, especially when you get into rent control. And you're seeing some properties where you have to put down a huge down payment to break even as an investor. It doesn't pencil out, and I think that's where you start to see the wrinkle in the marketplace.
So we're going to need to see then a more of a larger variety of houses in the larger price ranges, into the more affordable range as well as the higher end, before we start seeing investors get really turned off. In my opinion, we're going to see them continue. I think they're going to continue in force. Just my opinion, regardless of rates, because I think there's a lot of investors with deep pockets.
Fair enough.
We'll come back after this break. I'm Tony Mendez, and I won't forget to talk about the how a fast closing can matter to you in a purchase. We'll come back after this break. I'm Tony Mendez. That's Gordon Hines. It's a Real Estate Report. You can always catch us at YouTube or Facebook. It's Bay Area Loan Source. We'll come back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW.
Questions about real estate? Call the program, 800-516-1220. Now, back to the Real Estate Report on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm the maestro, Gordon Hines.
We're going to talk about a couple products real quick that, again, there's not a lot of education out there that doesn't look like an ad. It's not it's most likely an ad. Cal Haffa, you were talking last week or the week before, Gordon, I can't remember, about 100% financing and some of the true 100% financing out there. You talked about gift equity. You talked about VA loans. Another one out there is what they call first and second loans, up to 100%. Those used to be common practice here in the business. You could get an 80-20. 100% financing. Those went away. Most of the second loans now go up to only about 85%, maybe 90% if you find a broker that uses them like we do. But there's something called Cal Haffa, the Housing Finance Agency, and they have something called a forgivable equity builder loan. Let's talk about that a little bit, Gordon.
Well, the reason why a lot of these programs went away is because they weren't competitive in a market where the market was moving so swiftly. Sellers didn't want to fool around with these type of programs. Anytime you wrote an offer and they saw these type of programs, they shy away from because they thought they took too long. They wanted the quick close, the cash close, the 30-day close, anything. And traditionally, these products couldn't close in that period of time. But now they can. But Cal Haffa is back, and these loans now are beginning to pick up steam simply because when the market, what drives the market is, we always talk about, it's a product. It's not a new product, but it's a product that's kind of reinvented itself. What the program that they have, what they call the forgivable second, you can actually finance almost 100% of the purchase price. You do need a down payment, but you can finance the closing costs. And the way how this program works in one, the program, it could be either Cal Haffa with an FHA loan or it could be Cal Haffa with a conventional loan. And they have different requirements as far as credit scores and different options. Income limits. Yeah. But the big thing is with the forgivable loan is every year for the first 1 to 4 years, you lose 10%. They forgive 20% of the principal. So at the end of the 5 years, if you keep the loan, that amount of loan that you borrow, which is up to 10%, it's on a $600,000 purchase price, that's $60,000 forgivable, but that makes a huge difference on your qualifying. So these programs do require a second look. And I think if you're out there looking to buy, you are a first-time buyer. That's the key. You must be a first-time buyer, must be owner-occupied, must be a single unit. They do take in consideration houses that have an auxiliary unit or an ADU, so that's a good thing. But duplexes, they won't do it.
I heard a scenario that seemed pretty outrageous when I first heard it, but it makes sense. Let's say you're buying a place with 20% down. You could get as long as you fit the income limits and the loan limits, because these have to follow up what they call the high balance limits, which are pretty decent around here. You can do 10% down, use a 10% forgivable equity loan, and then an 80% first loan. And then after 5 years, that 10% down that you got, instead of putting 20% down, you put 10% down. That other 10% gets forgiven after 5 years. You basically saved, and let's say it's an $800,000 purchase, you saved $80,000 in a 5-year period. It
is a great program. Most people are out there are not aware of the nomenclature, how these actual loans work. The minute you mention government assisted, people get scared, because especially sellers. But I think now as the market becomes, as we talk, kind of come back to a little bit more normal, and there are lots of inventory market and people now are looking to sell houses, this doesn't affect your price. These loans can still close in 30 days. There's no 2 appraisals required. There's no special things that's required on the buyer's part. There's no seller participation, such as, termite clearance like VA loans and home inspections, and all these things must be fixed and all these special inspections. No, these are straightforward transactions as long as the loan person knows what he or she is doing, which we do it, and is competent. We can actually close these loans in less than 30 days like a normal transaction.
So if you wanted more information about the CalHFA first and second loans, they can help you with closing costs and down payment. You can always reach out to us, Tony or Gordon, at BayAreaLoanSource.com. You talked about fast closings. Something that we're seeing a lot. We're connected with all sorts of social networks. Is a lot of people now are advertising what their closing time is, their average closing time. What's ours right now?
Well, ours fast closing is tough when the market's really busy, but our average fast closing on a 30-year fix on a purchase was about 19 days.
So, and that makes a huge difference because I would say the typical realtor, the listing agent's looking for something less than 30 days on a close of escrow. Mm-hmm. They want to see that loan contingency get removed as fast as possible as well. And then if you can offer them something like 19 days closing, that gives the seller a lot more confidence when they're looking at your offer. That makes a big difference to me. But that's also important for the seller. Tell us why that's important for the seller, because a lot of people aren't using that as a tool. We can close fast.
Well, it's important for the seller because a lot of times as a seller is selling, they might want to buy something, and they might be in a contingent contract, meaning that they need the funds from their sale of their house to use to the purchase of their house. So one transaction definitely controls another. So the longer that transaction to sell their house take, the longer the transaction to purchase their house. So it can be actually a two-deal killer if that first transaction doesn't actually happen. I think we just need to re-educate sellers, let them know these programs are here. They've been here, but now they're back with a little bit of twist, a little bit more refinement. A lot more people now understand these programs and can actually sell these programs and make these programs work. They're very efficient. It's for the first-time buyer. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. No shifting. Must be a first-time buyer means not own something that lasts 3 years.
Yeah, and I wouldn't fear at all either if you're hearing somebody say my VA loan or my FHA loan is going to close a little bit later, a couple days added. Is the show over?
No. No.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry, we heard a little bit of music. Sorry, a little preemptive music. But if you have like a VA loan or FHA loan, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take longer. It can be a little bit harder, but you can be proactive and still fit those windows. Don't let somebody tell you that, you can't close in a certain amount of time with a VA or an FHA loan. That's not actually true. Even non-QM stuff, 2 appraisal, jumbos, everything is sped up so much. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to us, Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. That's Tony or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. Don't forget, it's Bay Area Loan Source at Facebook and YouTube for more videos. It's Tony and Gordon on The Real Estate Report.